Good morning. My name's Tracy Howe. I'm the chair for the annual general meeting today. I'm one of the co-chairs of the governing board, and I'm based in the London office. We're going to start with a welcome video.
안녕하세요.
Hallo. Pozdrav.
Olá, seja bem-vindo a Cochrane.
Bonjour.
你好
Hola.
سلام به کاکرین خوش آمدید.
سلام سیاکره.
کنیچیوا
สวัสดีครับ
Yara Cochrane. Hello.
你好
Привет. Добро пожаловать в Cochrane.
Kia ora koutou katoa from New Zealand. Welcome to this Cochrane meeting.
Good morning and welcome. As I say, my name is Tracy Howe. I'm one of the co-chairs of the governing board, and I'm welcoming you to this annual general meeting. I'm currently sitting in the London office, and you can see on the screen some other people from the London office. Good morning. And Catherine Marshall, my co-chair, is joining us from New Zealand, and Judith Brody is also here in the London office, and Stefano Negroni is joining us from Milan. So welcome. Just a few housekeeping points. Can you ensure your microphone is muted when you're not speaking? You'll probably find that your microphone has been muted by default. You can't unmute yourself at the moment. Please keep your camera turned off until we get to the question and answers time. That's helpful for people who have unstable bandwidth connections on their internet, so it will help with them streaming the session. So please, if you could turn off your cameras at that point until we get to the question and answer session. Obviously, this is the annual general meeting, and you can ask questions. So if you click on the chat session, and you can post a question in there. When we get to question and answers, there is an opportunity for those people that wish to submit a verbal question to click. If you click on reactions and raise your hand, that will identify you to our team. And we'll try to get through as many of those as possible within the time constraints that we have. For those people that wish to have subtitles on, you can click on the live transcript section, and you can show or hide the subtitles on there. So that's just housekeeping. This is the running order for today. I'm going to, in a second, talk you through the voting procedures, but as you can see, we've got a number of reports for you that we have to present to you, and then we'll finish on the questions and answers. So, voting procedures. So some people will have already voted in advance. All voting is electronic, and you have to have access to the internet. Obviously, you're doing that at the moment. You can vote at any time during this meeting, but voting will be closed at the end of the meeting, and the results will be announced later after the meeting has finished. So for those people that haven't voted, if you want to go to agm.cochrane.org, log in using your Cochrane details, and you can cast your votes on the resolutions that we have today. So welcome from the governing board. Here's some photographs of us. We are represented by some members that are elected by Cochrane members and some that are appointed by the board. The Cochrane is a registered charity in the United Kingdom, and our board serve as our trustees. So our current trustees come from 10 different countries, ranging from Argentina to New Zealand. You're probably aware that nominations have been received for new members. We have 18 applications for 5 new members, and 7 of those are in the category of 30 years or younger. Is something that we are ring fencing this time to try and increase diversity of the board. You can see on this list here, these are the areas of expertise that we are looking for to fill our requirements for business. And you can see that there are some interesting categories on there, and we will see what happens. So the names of the candidates will be published today on the Cochrane website, so you can take a look at those. 2 of our current board members are not seeking re-election and will step down, and that's Nikki Cullum and Xavier Bonfil. So our thanks to them for their contributions to Cochrane. They both served an office 3 years in office. So thank you very much for their contributions, and they'll be missed. So what does the board do? So the board is supported by its subcommittees and working groups. So we have a number of those, ranging from governance through to finance, audit and investment. We have a remuneration committee, nominating committee, complaints and resolutions, colloquia meetings and events working group, and diversity and inclusion programme. So the board works hard on your behalf and cover a wide range of topics and areas. The board is guided by a charter and a code of conduct for its members. We are a responsible board and take our duties very seriously. We look at our strategy. We shape the direction of travel for Cochrane. Thank you. But the board has legal responsibilities as well. So our legal duties are acting in the charity's best interests. So, for example, we look at dealing with conflicts of interest there. We manage the charity's resources responsibility. So we have to look at financial controls, and we have to manage risks. An obvious risk that people would be very aware of is the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and what happened to the charity during that time. We have to act with reasonable care and skill, and we take appropriate advice when needed to, and you'll be hearing from Ginny Barber later, who is advising us on open access. We have to ensure legal and financial responsibilities of our employees. So that's looking at supporting the well-being of Cochrane staff, for example, again, during the pandemic, looking at working at home policies and ensuring staff are supported through that. And finally, we have to oversee financial and statutory requirements and reporting. So that's including the annual review. We have a trustees report, financial statements, and the Charity Commission annual return. And of course, the annual general meeting, it falls into that category. So you will have received the minutes of the last annual general meeting, that they were posted on the website. So the first of the voting resolutions is to approve the minutes from the last annual general meeting, which was held on the 16th of December last year. So now's an opportunity for you to vote if you haven't already done so. Okay, so thank you. We'll now move on to the first of a number of reports. So the first report is the co-chair's report, and can I just introduce Catherine Marshall, who is based in New Zealand, who's the other co-chair, who will now present this report. Thank you, Catherine.
Kia ora koutou katoa from New Zealand. Thanks, Tracy, for the introduction. And it's lovely to see nearly 200 people at our AGM, and even some people in our London office. So hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. You'll see from the slide set that Tracy and I have put together that we wanted to start talking about what we're looking forward to in the future and Cochrane's future role. And we just started by looking backwards. When the Cochrane collaboration was formed in 1993, telephones and libraries looked quite different. I was really impressed that Tracy was able to find a copy of a CD-ROM there, just to show you what the Cochrane Library used to look like. Now in 2021, we've got multiple websites, we've got new ways of using technology, new ways of absorbing information and using it. And so what we're really looking for over our next 2 years strategy for change is to think what will we be like in 2033 and beyond. So in the next slide, you'll see that we've been reflecting on where we're at as well. Who would have guessed that in the last 2 years we would have seen such a transformation in our lives? COVID-19 has made such an impact. And it has also been a time for Cochrane's core products to be sought after and used and actually making an impact on people's lives. In addition to contributing to the knowledge base of COVID-19, we've all changed our lives, the way we work, the way we have operated home, and the way we communicate. And you'll see, just go back to the last slide, we have really been in a situation where we've had to look hard at our ongoing viability, what it means for us, what are our costs. And so in the next slide, you'll see that we have been trying to do things differently, whereas once we would have sunbird in South Africa or learnt to do fan dancing in South Korea, we've had to modify our ways of engaging. And we're thinking more and more about what the future looks like and how we keep the special Cochrane spirit that gets us together at these events and enjoying each other's company. And we're looking at how we can do these things again. In the next slide, you'll see that we've had a really busy year. And when Tracy and I were talking about this presentation, we thought about the combination of things that we've been looking at in 2021. If you start in the left-hand bottom corner, we started with the launch of the Systematic Review of Intervention Handbook. We have then moved on to thinking about how we diversify our income, given what we know about COVID-19, given what we know about our plans for open access there. We're really looking at how we can be very mindful of what we spend, but also thinking about new ways of attracting supporters, funders, and donors. We've taken a lot of time to look at our internal structures in the central executive team, and over the last months we've been refining the systems and processes that are used centrally, looking for ways that we can be smarter, reduce duplication, be simpler, and also thinking about the organisation structure. And that's been a very hard and tough conversation, but we think that with the support of the staff and their ideas, we've got some really good ways of moving forward. This year we've also had the insight from Judith Brodie, our new Chief Executive, our Interim Chief Executive, and you'll hear more about these things from Judith. As I said before, we've been thinking about new ways of communicating, And you'll see that we did some new things with Cochrane Convenes, which was a really large group of meetings that we held just recently. And we'll talk a little bit more about that throughout the morning. We've got hands up for wanting to be inclusive and diverse, and we've launched this year a program of reflecting and listening on ways that Cochrane can be more welcoming, more inclusive, and we would love to hear more from you about things that you think we can do. Heading up onto the top line, the second box from the left is a snapshot from our strategy for change, and you've probably heard about that for the last 6 months, and Judith will talk about that in a few more minutes. And of course, we've also been looking at the future of evidence synthesis production, and Carla will talk about that. We've also launched a new membership program, and it's just representing a massively packed agenda for the year. So thanks to everyone who's contributed. On the next slide, you'll see that all of this is really going to looking at how we can transform the organisation while we're in a strong financial position. And you'll hear from our Treasurer, Karen Kelly, more about that in a few minutes. So what we want to do is to focus on what has the most impact and what allows us to stop things that don't add value. We want to be simpler, and we want to find ways of encouraging innovation that we can deliver our evidence and have partnerships with agencies that we can work with closely. Many people have been asking us about open access, and we'll be talking about this for the next year or so. But it's been really interesting when you hear from Ginny Barber soon. You'll hear her talk about how the G7 and many other funders around the world are saying that they want to commit to open access to science. And so that's one of the reasons that we're taking the time to think strategically about our open access options. And really, this decision to go open access by 2025 builds on the conversations we've been having as a community for probably the last 10 years. So we need to look for new business models, and what we're really signalling is that we're going to be continuing our review of how we can construct an organisation that is able to take this forward. In the next slide, you'll see that we're really optimistic, and we have, in the last few months, commissioned a group of advisors called Global Leadings Consulting, who kind of made us just step back and listen to what people think about Cochrane. And these are some really wonderful reflections from them. Cochrane is a unique, admired, respected and trusted organisation whose work has never been more important, and potential donors will be recognising and should recognise this. Cochrane has a reputation for integrity, quality, and for effectively mobilising a global network of volunteers. And enthusiasm to participate in the Cochrane network across the globe continues to be high, and there appears to be a widely held perception that it's an incorruptible source of high quality research synthesis. The organisation looks to have responded with dynamism to the short-term evidence demands of an anxious world and showcased its capacity to act expeditiously while being mindful of quality and the dangers of misinformation. And I think these are really amazing snapshots of how we're seen, and I think it helps us to really focus on where we want to be and the things that we want to hold proudly for Cochrane. In the next slide, you'll see that we have made great strides. We've moved in the last 7 years from traffic on our website from 4 million to 84 million. That's an incredible number of additional hits. So we've got people accessing our information in languages other than English, and you'll see an example of some of the languages that reviews are published in. It's just really, I think, a tribute to people's hard work, and it's exciting to see so much access. So in the next slide, you'll see some information about the Cochrane Convenes meetings. That we've been having a really strong social media presence, trying to invite people to the final session in there, and we were delighted to have 300 people from 66 countries joining global health leaders and experts from around the world. We had a very broad spectrum of people that joined us, which was fabulous. And I know it was a huge amount of work. And I think it's probably going to be an exciting package of ways of communicating, where we can split into groups, where we can feed off each other, we can fertilize conversations for the future for our online meetings. And at the end of our presentation here, you'll be hearing from Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, the DG of the World Health Organization, who can talk a little bit about Cochrane. In the next slide, you'll see a reflection of this really happy graphic of welcoming people to Cochrane. And I think that vibrancy of the people and the experience and the diversity is really fabulous. We've got 100,000 people who are members and supporters, and they come from a rich background of different life skills, cultural backgrounds, lived experience and abilities, and we want to still be welcoming more and more people. So we want to hear what people think about how we do business, how we can be simpler, how we can be easier to use. And so if you have a chance to participate in our listening survey, please do. As Tracy mentioned, we are also wanting to recruit new people to the board. And so we've particularly ring-fenced a role for people who are 30 years old and under. And one of the other things that we mentioned earlier is that we're going to be also reflecting on the values that people hold dear to them and what Cochrane represents. And that work's going to be led by the Consumer Network and the Council. And Stefano will talk more about that. In the next slide, just giving you a snapshot of the people that are going to be talking in more detail. And in the next slide, we've got an event that we're going to lure you to join us on the 16th of November. So hopefully this is going to be a little bit more free-flowing, a little bit more, few fun things. We're going to have some celebrations and award prizes, and we look forward to more people joining us. So thank you, everyone. We couldn't have got through another tremendous year without everyone's hard work and contribution, and we really deeply appreciate it. Thank you very much. And so now I'd like to pass on to the Director General of the World Health Organization.
Dear colleagues and friends, science has always been at the heart of improvements in health, and it's at the heart of everything WHO does. Indeed, WHO's constitution commits us to promoting cooperation among scientific and professional groups which contribute to the advancement of health. As part of the WHO transformation, we created a new science division in 2019 to improve the way we gather, analyze, and distill evidence into guidance for countries. Engaging with partners like Cochrane is an essential part of how we do that. Everyone online today is part of a critical global ecosystem focused on ensuring the best evidence is translated into better policies, better practices, and better health outcomes. During the COVID-19 pandemic, WHO's Science Division has worked closely with the Health Emergencies Program to produce and quality assure more than 1,600 guidance documents. This would not have been possible Without our partnership with Cochrane, the partners of the COVID End Network, and our WHO Evidence Collaborative for COVID-19. Thank you to all of you for your advice and input on how we can make sure our guidance is more timely, relevant, useful, and impactful in countries. WHO is committed to continuing to work with all of you to learn the lessons the pandemic is teaching us and create a healthier, safer, and fairer future. I thank you.
Thank you to Catherine and of course to Dr. Tedros there for his very kind messages. Thank you to everyone who's online and just reiterate Catherine's comments there that we can't do any of this without all of you fantastic folk out there. So the next thing I'd like to do is to introduce Karen Kelly, who is our treasurer. Karen is one of our appointed trustees and she's appointed for her expertise in finance and she's been a fantastic asset to the board. And she's based in Glasgow. And welcome, Karen. You can take the floor.
Thank you, Tracy, and hello everyone out there. So I'm going to take the next 10 minutes just to take you through the financial statements for the 2020 financial year and provide an update for the current year and looking forward to the next few years and what that might hold for the organisation's financial outlook. All of that relates specifically to the charity, but I will also take some time at the end to give you some information on the financial and resource monitoring of Cochrane Groups. Okay, first of all, then looking at the 2020 financial results for the charity, which are summarised there in the slide. So we're showing you the actuals for 2020 compared to the previous year and also compared to the budget which the board set. The financial results are very good for 2021, and I'm pleased to say that we ended the year with a healthy balance sheet and better than had been agreed when we set the budget. Although the income appears to be significantly higher in 2020, you see a figure of 12.8 million there. This is largely due to a one-off financial benefit related to the new publishing contract with Wiley, and it also strengthened our reserves position. You can see there that expenditure was below budget, and this was largely because of the impact of COVID on staff costs and particularly travel costs. As you know, the colloquium was cancelled. That didn't have an impact on the net position for the organisation, but the budget had assumed income and expenditure of around £1 million each. So that explains in part the variances which are shown between budget and actual. But as I say, it had a zero impact on the bottom line. So setting aside the exceptional items, it would be fair to say that rather than generating a surplus of 3.8 million, as is shown there, operationally there was actually an underlying deficit of 1.2 million, which is similar to 2019, but an improvement on the budget that was set. The accounts show that the charity ended the year with total reserves of £10 million. Now, the board previously agreed a reserves policy and set up a ring-fenced reserves of 4.5 million for strategic investment and to support business continuity through the forthcoming period of change, which Catherine referred to. So that leaves a balance of 5.5 million, which is shown there as freely available reserves, which are not earmarked for any specific purpose. More details of the reserves policy and the full statutory accounts are available on the Cochrane website. So looking at the current year for 2021, again, we have some summary figures there to show you what our current forecast is, what are comparing that with the actual for 2020 and for the budget. The budget that was agreed for 2021 was a deficit budget of 2.1 million, and that was to be funded from these free reserves that I've referred to. Our current forecasts show that income will be slightly lower than budget, 7.7 million compared to 8, and the expenditure will also be lower, 9.5 million compared to 10.1. So we are forecasting a slightly lower deficit at this point in time of 1.8 million. You'll see that there's an innovations charge there of 0.7 million. Earlier in the year, the board took a decision to close Cochrane Innovations Limited, which is a trading subsidiary, and transfer its activities into the main charity. Now that actually requires an accounting adjustment of 0.7 million, and part of it is shown there. The other side of it is actually contained in the balance sheet. So while it appears to be a high figure there, it actually doesn't have any impact on the bottom line. So the projected reserves position at the end of this year will be largely in line with the budget that was set. This chart shows the actual results from 2016 to 20 and the forecast for the next few years. I think what's notable is that while we've seen some operational deficits in some years and surpluses in others, you can see that since 2019, the deficit budgets have been agreed. There are reasons for this, and it's right to make sensible use of reserves, and that has been considered in the budget process. However, it's not sustainable, particularly in the context of the income challenges which were referred to earlier. So the board is aiming to reduce this level of operating deficit in 2022 and to reach a break even by 2023. The income forecast beyond 2024 is very uncertain, but Cochrane is aiming to grow and diversify income and improve operational efficiency through the strategy for change. Reserves have been set aside for strategic investment, as I mentioned earlier, and that will provide suitable funding for those change initiatives which are required to help Cochrane achieve its strategic plans. That concludes my comments on the charity. I now just want to turn to the financial and resource monitoring of Cochrane groups, which are not included within the charity accounts, but it's very useful to establish a picture of the whole organisation's funding and sustainability. Cochrane groups were asked to undertake a survey to provide critical business information, and this is really important information for planning and risk management. So we want to thank everyone for completing that survey and providing this vital information. The data for 2021 is currently being processed and will be published by the end of the year. But looking at the survey, which was most recently completed, we just want to highlight some analysis which points to some risks for the organisation globally and which will need to be addressed. And these main risks are highlighted there in the slide. First of all, our top group funders contribute a disproportionately high share of our group's income. And the top resource groups dispose of a disproportionately high share of all group resources. Looking at that another way, a high number of groups don't receive any direct income. And many groups rely on a single funder for all or most of their income. So you can see the risks that are associated with that. It's worth noting that the charity itself is one of the top 10 group funders. Overall group funding has been at a similar level since 2008, while the number of groups has actually increased, mainly through new geographic groups. And looking at the pattern of spread, most of our income and human resource is in Europe and in high income countries. So there are a number of interesting points there for us to consider as we look forward to the funding arrangements in future years. And that concludes my presentation to the AGM today. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. An excellent presentation of a complex issue. We'll move now to vote for the proposed resolution, which is to receive and note the trustees' report and financial statements for the year ended 31st of December 2020. And if we just move on to the next one, which is the appointment of our auditors. So again, we have another resolution to note the reappointment of Sarah Vincent as our auditors until the next annual general meeting. Thank you. And now we'll move on to the report from Council. I'm pleased to introduce Stefano Negrini, who is joining us from Milan. Good morning, Stefano. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Tracy, for giving me the floor. And I am going to present you the Council report for this year, together with Bob Della Valle, that is not with us because now is overnight in his place, but he sent us graciously this photo. I'm not the one with him. I'm a little bit different. So the aim and purpose of the Council is to ensure that everybody in the community has an effective voice in Cochrane's leadership. And this is the reason why we exist, and this is the what we are aimed to. So we want to propose a forum to discuss all the high-level matters affecting Cochrane. And we are not only in a time of changes, we are in a strategy to change. That means that in this specific moment, the Council has to really provide as many information as possible to the governing board and to achieve its bridging function between the community and the board to help this strategy for change. The Council is there to raise matters and provide input, and this can happen only if we receive information from all our constituencies, and we are a forum to consider matters that comes from the governing board. This is the magnificent team that we have in the Council, and we have 17 out of 18 members. We are still missing one representative from the field. There are 12 countries, 5 continents, including low middle income countries. And most of all, there are all the 9 constituencies of Cochrane. And recently, we had some changes in our composition. So we welcome Euphrasia and Jack from the Consumers Network, and we welcome Santiago and Ahmad from the Early Career Professionals Network, and Sylvia from the Methods Group. And we are also to thank the outgoing members, and notably there are among them the 2 co-chairs, Miranda Langentham and Craig Lockwood, that left before the summer. And in fact, we are quite new in this job, Bob and me, and Rachel, that also left the Council. And this year, we also had the entrance of a new constituency. Probably you are not so well aware of this new and highly important group, that is the Early Career Professional Group. that collect the young colleagues after the initiative of Cochrane's 30 Under 30 that was launched a couple of years ago, and serves as a platform for international networking for our young colleagues with all the community. What we are mostly working on is increasing even more the connection with the governing board. So recently, the council co-chairs have been nominated ex officio as non-attending, non-voting attendees to the governing board meetings. That means that we can inform properly the council and the community of what's going on. And the same has happened with the governing board co-chairs that now attend the council in the same function. And also we are meeting every 2 months with the, we have a meeting of the board and council co-chairs to increase as much as possible the communication. What have we done in 2021 has been a continuation of a difficult couple of years, since we used to have 2 days meetings twice a year, but now we moved only to the internet connections, and that was really not enough. And you will see before the end of the presentation that we are trying to do something more. But we gave input on the editorial integrity and efficiency project that you are probably well aware of. We worked on the strategy for the new way of meeting into Cochrane in these COVID-19 times and forward. And we know of the importance of having the chance to speak each other, and this is one of the issues that we are facing globally. We work on the diversity and inclusion initiatives, as well on the draft of monitoring and evaluation framework that is underway in this period of time. And we also contributing in establishing the emeritus and lifetime memberships of Cochrane. In the last period of time, we focused specifically on the planned changes on the Cochrane review groups. And we had a meeting that was of high importance, and I would say also quite emotional because of the problem that are raising there. So it was highlighted the need for the well-being of the Cochrane review groups and network staff. That is now a serious concern. And it was underlined how Cochrane is not just a job, is a real belief system. And this is true for all the voluntaries, but also for all those who are currently working in Cochrane. And we are, and the problem linked to the new editorial management system that adds as a burden in this period of change. So we are working closely with the board co-chairs and the editors-in-chief to address at best these concerns. What are our priorities for 2022? I already stressed the importance of communication, and we are really hardly working on this. Again, the only reason why the council exists is to serve this bridging function between the governing board and central executive team and the leadership of the library and the community. And this is what we want to do. So we want further the input on the future of the community and the library. And also in this aspect, we have started to work under the initiative of the consumer executive on a statement of values of Cochrane that will probably be one of the main initiatives in 2022. And we are also trying to improve our terms of reference. And the agenda of the meetings has become a monthly agenda, and that is really a great increase from the 4 times per year that was previously. We invite all of you to send your queries or your input to the council through your council representative or by email at the mail that you see there. And thanking you, I just want to remind you that the council listens to and speaks for the community. And so please help us in doing our job. And thank you very much. And I wait for your questions.
Thank you, Stefano, and of course, Bob. That was an excellent presentation, and I can see that the community are well represented through the excellent work that you've been doing. And thank you to everyone. Please post your questions in the chat box if you have any. We're now moving on to the Interim Chief Executive's report. And I'm pleased to introduce Judith Brodie, our Interim Chief Executive, who is joining us from the London office as well. Welcome, Judith. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Tracy, and hello, everyone. For some reason, it wasn't moving. Now it's moving. I'm going to talk again, and you will hear echoes in my presentation of what others have also talked about. So I'm going to talk about the transformation agenda and how we achieve sustainability and resilience through the reorganisation that we've embarked upon in different areas of our lives and work. Firstly, what I want to say is how brilliant and how crucial Cochrane is. What I want to do, and I know what we all want to do, is really ensure Cochrane remains brilliant and crucial into the future. And I love these quotes, actually. Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Well, I think that really, in a way, that is Cochrane. It started off with someone's dream idea about how things could improve in evidence-based healthcare. And we're still reaching for the stars to change the world. And the world is changing. So the way we do that has to change. And then this comment from Kennedy about, if we only look at the past and the present, we will miss the future. And we can't afford to miss the future. The way things have been changing, the speed and pace at which things change, we absolutely have to think about the future and be much more agile and adapt. And I have not worked in quite a long career. I have not worked in an organisation that has such immense intelligence in every part of its activity. And so a measure of intelligence is our ability to change, and that we have changed and we must change and we are continuing to change. And that is absolutely key to us remaining the brilliant and crucial organisation that we are. So how are we transforming? Well, you've heard already about much of this. So we introduced the strategy for change, which is based on the consultations on the strategy that have taken place over the previous year or so, but really take us through the next couple of years. We've embarked on a review and reorganisation across Cochrane to reduce costs and inefficiencies and to streamline the way we work. So this involves work on our editorial and publishing systems, the future of evidence synthesis, how we adapt to an open access future, and also how we organise ourselves in the central executive team. And crucially, as others have said, investment in organisational fundraising to ensure we really grow and diversify our income and get to that sustainable endeavour that we all want to be part of. I think it's really important to emphasise, and this is at the heart of the strategy for change, is that we will transform in a way that is absolutely in line with our key principles, in a way that is collaborative, that it helps us maintain relevance. Integrity absolutely is at the heart of Cochrane and needs to remain so, and maintaining the absolute quality of what we do. But we do need to change. We do need to make changes and transform in the next couple of years to make sure that we have that sustainable future as we move to an open access world. I think I have covered this, so I think you will all be familiar with the strategy for change that was launched earlier this year. And this is absolutely guiding everything that we're doing. Everything that we're involved in now is in line with the strategy for change. And this is our guide star, our reference point as we go through this transformation. But I have to say, with all this change, Cochrane continues to deliver amazing work, that amazing response, fantastic response to COVID-19, how we work together to shape the future of evidence production. The learning from that COVID experience is informing what we're doing today. The involvement of citizen scientists, fantastic initiatives that we're involved in. You've heard about some of this already from the co-chairs, and Carla will shortly talk more about all of these areas. Cochrane convenes, what an incredible event, and that partnership with WHO, and hearing from Dr. Tedros earlier. And we just had the partner in that World Evidence-Based Healthcare Day, which was fantastic. And I'm sure many of you were involved in the challenge that we hosted for that. That commitment to open access, really key, really important to our values of not only producing the best evidence, but making it available and making sure it's relevant and informs decisions, plain language summaries, and much more. You've heard, as I say, from the co-chairs, and Carla will also be talking about these things. So let me just take a little while to go through the review and reorganisation. I guess the two main drivers here are financial, which is that open access future, which is so aligned with our values, but does affect our income from 2025, a much less secure income environment. Generally, you've heard about the reserves from Karen, and that all means we do need to diversify our income and invest in that, and find ways to invest in that so that we can build up a diversified income portfolio to take us through the long-term future. I think the other area is about efficiency and impact, and inevitably, Cochrane has grown wonderfully in so many different ways, but sometimes when that growth is organic, complexities can arise and inefficiencies can arise. And to make sure we are really focusing and spending on the right things in the right way, we have to look at how we streamline the way we work. And be much more adaptive and prioritise and focus on the right things. And also be aware of that competition and the need to diversify our income in quite a competitive environment. And that means being much clearer on the impact of what we do, exactly how are we changing lives across the world, because I know we do in so many different ways. So the focus of the review and reorganisation covers the whole of Cochrane. We really want to continue to strengthen our communications engagement with members and supporters, obviously adapt to changes to Cochrane review groups, and look at the central executive team and charity, simplify the way we work, make sure everything we do adds value, but it is also value for money. So that does mean reducing our cost base, so we can do that. Obviously, we are very understanding that the challenging time that UK Cochrane review groups are going through right now, and we do want to recognise that difficult time and to do what we can to support you through change. We will also be changing the central executive team, and actually that is a very live issue right now. We are going through that change in the central team, and by the end of the year we will have reduced our cost base and our staffing complement. What we've been able to do with that CET restructure is already save 2 million in next year, and that will be more from 23. And so it has achieved what we want it to achieve, or will have achieved that by the time we've gone through the restructure. Just briefly to say that the way we're simplifying is to go to 4 directorates rather than 10 departments or 9 departments I think we have now. So it's a much simpler structure, and crucially makes room for this Director of Development, Director of Fundraising, which is going to be a key, that role is going to be a key player in our sustainable future, and I'll say a bit more about that shortly. So what impact will this have on the Cochrane community? Obviously, we will want to be talking to you all about how we develop this global fundraising strategy. We do think there's great opportunity in the new structure to really strengthen internal communications within Cochrane and across Cochrane and collaboration. And that's actually going to be key to our future in terms of fundraising as well. The Future of Evidence Synthesis programme is a key change programme at the moment, and we've made sure the new structure supports that change programme, but there will be further change because we don't yet know the direction of travel there, because the consultation is still going on, and there's some great feedback on that consultation. There is a reduction in central knowledge translation capacity, but we really want to continue knowledge translation and support the great work that is done across Cochrane. And so there's a new remit, a new role and a new remit in this structure, which is much more about ensuring everyone understands their own role in knowledge translation and supporting the community in knowledge translation work. I will just say something quickly about fundraising, just to really emphasize what the vision is at the moment, is to really develop a global approach to fundraising. There is enormous potential to generate income for Cochrane's work around the world, and Cochrane already has such a fabulous community and such fabulous collaboration. Those partnerships and collaborations that we can have across Cochrane really make this a massive area of potential. And so the aim will be, by working together, to aim to increase the income for Cochrane globally. It's a strategic priority, as I've talked about. We will need to think differently to unlock the funding, but I know we can and will do that, and many people already are doing that. It will rely on those partnerships and collaborations, but we believe with some basis that there's real potential for success, as we've had a review of the potential. But we do need to invest now, because we won't get the returns in time for that 2025 move to open access unless we invest now. Very, very briefly, we are going to be looking at cultural ways of working in the central executive team, but that initiatives that others have already talked about, Stefano and Catherine already alluded to, about the process to develop community values. We will want to work very much with that initiative to make sure that there is real alignment across the CET and the wider community. Those values must be Cochrane values wherever you are in Cochrane. And I'm really excited about that. I'm really looking forward to that piece of work. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. And I will hand over to Carla.
Hello, everyone. And I'm speaking to you from the airport in Portugal, where I came to participate in a face-to-face event of the Portuguese Cochrane Center. So I'm sorry if the connection is not as good as you would expect, but hopefully it will be okay. So thank you very much all, and thank you for all the presenters. You have heard me speaking about our challenge many times in the past 6 months. Today, I really wanted to take the time that I have to celebrate with you the achievements that we've had this year. Not that we don't have challenge, but we are working together. So we're going to show you some of the Cochrane Library performance, discuss a little bit about the commitment to become open access by 2025, give you some initial feedback on the engagement and the consultation for the future of evidence synthesis production, and key highlights of recommendations from the Cochrane convenes. But before anything, it's just to thank you. We have done it with you, and we are very grateful to all of you for your participation with during this past year. Next slide, please. So this is a slide to demonstrate the usage of the Cochrane Library during the past 5 years. And you see a steady growth, including 2020, a 12% growth on usage. That very much was due to the COVID-19 reviews and updates, but also the fact that the Cochrane Library was freely accessible from March to May in 2020. But we also had a growth on the usage of Central and CCAs. Next, please. And basically, most importantly, is the amount of the impact of Cochrane reviews in 2020. The usage of Cochrane reviews, we had around 15 million full text views of Cochrane reviews, Central records, and CCAs from over 230 countries. The citation, the impact factor, grew again and is currently 9.3. What means that the Cochrane reviews are being cited every 6 minutes during 2020. We have seen a significant growth in altimetric for some of our reviews. And importantly, the reviews have been cited highly in guidelines, including that WHO guidelines, 86% of WHO guidelines in 2020 were informed by Cochrane reviews. Next, please. And these are some of the articles that from the highlights of this past year and a half. The review that was top accessed in the Cochrane Library in 2020 was the signs and symptoms to determine if a patient presented in primary care had COVID-19. We've seen high score automatic for most of our COVID reviews and achieved over 9,000 for the ivermectin review that was published recently. And this is really the highest automatic that we've seen in the Cochrane review. But we also had, the highest cited review in 2020 was the review on exercise for preventing falls in older people living in the community. And the highest cited Cochrane review in guideline was the decision aids for people facing health treatment or screening decisions. So thank you all very much. This is your work, and we are very, very proud of what we have achieved together. Next, please. And we also have increased the access of Cochrane Library across the globe. So you have a number of countries that subscribe for the Cochrane Library. You have new provisions that appeared that were contracted recently, and you have also 125 low and mid-income countries that have free access to the whole library due to our policies. Next, please. And the Wiley team, they conduct a customer survey every year. And every year, there is a significant increase on the satisfaction with the Cochrane Library, what is a really good thing for us. So this is the 2021 survey that was conducted in May this year, March to May this year. And you see that the satisfied or very satisfied, that's the 4 and 5 here, were above 70% of the people that responded. So the mean was above 4. The credibility remains a big issue why people are satisfied with Cochrane. and also because our information are regularly updated. And what we've seen also is that Cochrane, the Cochrane Library strongly supports knowledge education and decision-making in healthcare. Next, please. And, you know, one of the important things of this year for us was the Governing Board reiterating our commitment to make all Cochrane reviews open access by 2025. And when I think about that, you know, we think about a roadmap and how this roadmap could be a straight line like this one. But in fact, next please, it's a bit more of a curved roadmap. So we need your help, and we need to work with you on how we actually together came to make our reviews open access to everyone. Next, please. And why are we doing that? We're doing that because open access is at the heart of Cochrane's mission. We're doing that because COVID-19 has demonstrated the benefits of open access, and this is really being accelerated to move to open research. To align our strategy to global funders, you've heard a lot about fundraising and resource for the organization, but also government mandate to make knowledge accessible for all, and to really make sure that we get involved early on and innovate in open access funding models. Next, please. And what we're doing, this work is being led by Charlotte Pestridge, and it's a lot of work already done. So we need to start now in order to be able to be ready by 2025. 80% of the charity income is currently derived by the publishing of the Cochrane Library. So in order to go open access, we have to take into account that's going to be a reduction on our income. That's hence the reason to diversify. Our current open access the current open access modes are not exactly suitable to us. So we're going to have to work with stakeholders in order to adapt and innovate to make it work for Cochrane. We need a due diligence. We need to make sure that we take the time to understand and manage the organization risks. And we need to provide sufficient time to implement any change required in our production and publishing systems and process. Next, please. And as I said, this work is being led by Charlotte Pestridge from the central team. And the steps that we're taking now initially is to run a research and consultation project to identify a sustainable and funder compliant route. But then by October 22, we'll deliver a transition plan that will confirm how Cochrane could deliver full open access by 25, the impact and implications on Cochrane's future income, and how can we comply with open access funder mandates during the period of transition that I've described before. And with this in mind, I think we're gonna now hear a video from Ginny Barber. Ginny Barber is co-lead for scholarly communications in Queensland University of Technology. She's the director of Open Access Australasia, and she was one of the 3 founding editors of the PLOS Medicine. She shares the Cochrane Library Oversight Committee.
Hello everybody, my name is Ginny Barber. I'm the Director of Open Access Australasia. I'm based in Brisbane, Australia. I'm also the Chair of the Cochrane Library Oversight Committee. So I've just been asked to give some thoughts on where we are with open access now. 2020 was an extraordinary year in open access. The COVID pandemic proved beyond doubt the importance of open access to research articles and the open data associated with them. But that was built on 20 years of open access advances that really led us to be able to have a system in place that was able to support research during the pandemic. What I think has been especially interesting, however, in the past 12 months is massive policy and political support for open access and open science. I'll just highlight a few examples. Plan S from Coalition S, which came into force in January 2021, has really set an example for other funders to follow, both in policy intent and in policy details. It supports multiple routes to open access, but what is really clear is that it has to be immediate open access associated with an open licence. The UKRI policy is also largely aligned with Plan S, and in Australia, the National Health and Medical Research Council is also consulting on a policy that is also aligned with Plan S. There are other global funder moves along similar lines. In Australia, our chief scientist is talking about developing a national approach to open access, which encompasses more than just journal publications. And on the wider political stage, open science recommendation from UNESCO will be ratified in November, and that will be a very important policy and political tool. APEC has made a specific commitment to open science, and even the G7 has open science on its agenda. So my sense now is that we're at a pivotal moment in open access and open science, where we're no longer debating whether we will move to an open access world, but how we do it and what else needs to change. So, for example, how incentives are aligned to reward open science practices. We're also moving to a world where the finances of publishers will need to be much more transparent than before. There is a lot of goodwill now to help organisations and journals transition, and an understanding that diversity approaches is needed. However, my sense is also that there's a decrease in support for organisations that are not making concrete plans and preparations for an open access world. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Jeannie for advising, keep advising us in our open access policy. And now I just want to give you some highlight. As you know, in the past 2 months, we've been in a community engagement on the future of evidence synthesis production in Cochrane. And I would encourage you to visit the website futurecochrane.space if you have not done so, on which we highlighted a model that is now being adapted and adjusted with the community engagement. Next, please. Why are we doing that? We're doing that because times are different and we face important challenges. We know that we all want to continue to deliver in our goal of producing trusted and timely evidence. We want to respond to important global health and social care issues and needs. We want, as mentioned before by the co-chairs and by Judith, to streamline the way we produce evidence synthesis and simplify editorial and systems to improve efficiency. And we want to achieve financial sustainability. But the environment today is an environment that there is less funding for structure and increasing demands for open access. Next, please. And it's been amazing to see the engagement of the community. We've had over 1,500 visits so far to the website, and 130 of you have responded to the survey. And here I'm just giving you some of the snapshots of the message in the survey. So, for example, the pandemic has demonstrated that Cochrane reviews can be done swiftly by experienced resource teams. Cochrane has been slow to embrace innovations that can improve our ability to do more with less resource. There are concerns about keeping the quality standards. There are concerns about reviews done only by methodologies and the importance of content expertise in our reviews, but also the engagement of consumers. So a lot is being discussed in the survey, and because of that, we actually decided to extend the time of the survey until the 5th of November. So if you have not been able to look and to respond to the survey, we want to hear from you. But we also had 6 hours of our 7 workshops. Every workshop had over 100 participants, with some of them being close to 200 people. The way we're doing the workshop is to bring some people from the community to reflect on each one of the steps that we are proposing, but also having time to discuss and present opportunities, alternatives, and challenges for each one of these steps. We also, as you heard from Stefano, met with the council and we're gathering feedback from, and the council representatives are gathering feedback from their constituencies that we will also be taking into consideration. And what we do now is we aim to summarize all this feedback and share openly the results of this feedback with the community as an update of the website. So we are now working on starting looking at that. As you can imagine, a lot of work and a lot of qualitative research as well. But we start in the red to plan that, and this is going to be communicated and be added to the website so that you all can see what your colleagues have discussed about each one of the steps. Next, please. So basically, as I said, we started this process in September. We're finishing the workshops. The last one is on the 2nd of November. During December, we'll collate this, and the board has decided that the meeting to discuss this is going to be early in January to allow us to collate all the information that came from the engagement and develop a proposal for the governing board. Next one, please. And very briefly, finally, as you have heard, Cochrane Convenes was a success. We put together 90 members of healthcare policymakers, researchers, funders, journalists, science communicators, and consumers representatives from around the world. They've discussed in 7 roundtables. Next, please. The topics of the roundtables were about priority setting, production of reviews, and the key thing were what did we do well, what could have done better, and what recommendations would be for the future in preparedness for future updates and for future being prepared for future outbreaks. And the key recommendations are many. We started working on a report, but I just want to highlight some of the recommendations here that I think is very important for the moment that we are living. For researchers, it's actually to prepare in peacetime. For funders, it's to fund infrastructure, both in low-middle-income country and in high-income country. For policymakers, it's to be transparent and identify ways to communicate uncertainty and negative results. And for politicians, to act on misinformation, because misinformation threatens lives. So this is a very brief report. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope we'll have some time for questions.
Thank you, Carla. So much to report on, and such fantastic productivity from the entire Cochrane community. Thank you. We're now moving on to questions and answers. At this moment, you're welcome to turn on your cameras to ask questions. You can put questions into the chat box, and many of you have already done that. Thank you. And if you want to ask a question in person, please click on the reactions button and raise your hand, and we'll try and get to you as they come in. And you can also turn on or off the subtitles in the transcript button. Okay, so thank you. We do have a number of questions already. And there are a group of questions around consumer involvement. Catherine, would you be prepared to take some of those questions? I know that you've already responded to some in the chat, but there are lots of questions there around how do we engage with consumers and recruit more consumers into the community, and especially looking at people from lower middle income countries and diverse language types.
So we don't have a complete answer, but we do have a sort of portfolio of things that are happening. And Carla has talked about some of the ways of working with consumers in the new evidence synthesis approach. And it's certainly seen as having consumers as active in those new ways of working. We're very keen to hear from that survey any suggestions that people have about how to embed consumers more deeply into the structure. We also have the work that the council is doing on the values. So Stefano invited people to make contact, to talk to the council about the things that are interesting to consumers and the things that they value. But, it's not just about value, it's actually about making sure that we have consumers in every group. We have consumers doing a whole range of things. So I think that it's more of an opportunity to think about how we do that and to listen to it. Because I think it's a critical part of us being able to define how we put our systematic reviews out to audiences, how we partner with other organisations, and it's got to be a critical part of our approach to donors and fundraisers as well. We want to show them that we're making a difference to real people's lives, and we can only do that if we listen to consumers. And it's especially important that those people in low and middle income countries find us useful, find us engaging, and we'd like to know more ideas about how we're simple to use, how we're simple to approach, and how we're welcoming.
Thank you, Catherine. And there's even some suggestions in there about how we might go about that. So thank you to Kit Byatt for some suggestions there. And I think the one thing to be mindful of is that we are a charity. Cochrane is a charity, and our beneficiaries are patients and the public. So, it's really critical for us to be mindful of that through all of our activities that we do. The next question is around communication and the loss of face-to-face meetings. So the question really is around how are we able to engage with the community? What ways are we going to look at that for the future, given the uncertainty of travel and face-to-face meetings? Judith, perhaps you would want to take that one.
Thank you, Tracy. I think it is definitely something that we want to be focusing on. I think what we've been doing is trying to deal with the world as it is, as things change. But what we do need to do is just pause and take stock of how things do need to be different in future. There's a real appetite for face-to-face, and so we need to think about how we incorporate opportunities for face-to-face interaction in our portfolio of meetings alongside virtual opportunities in a post-pandemic world. And I think we have to also be very mindful that while some of us are in countries that are very lucky enough to be well vaccinated, and most countries in the world actually aren't in that position. And so we have to recognise the diversity of experience and provide opportunities for everyone to connect wherever they are and whatever their context and whatever their ability to travel. So it's not a decision yet. We need to have that discussion with the community and determine more of a plan. But certainly in the short term, we've got the community meeting on the 16th of November, and I do encourage people to sign up for that.
Thank you, Judith.
Tracy, can I just add that we've also got the hop-in technology, which I hope some of you have tried out, where we have sort of virtual dating with 3 minutes of conversations. It's wonderful fun. It's so exciting to see people and just have a splash of conversation. So we're thinking about new ways of doing that. Some of our board members are thinking about doing virtual dancing so we can get that real Cochrane vibe. But we do have to think about new ways that we can have fun as well, because I think that's a critical part of our community, as well as sharing information and learning things.
Thank you for that. And if you do have any suggestions about that, one of the places that you can do that on is our diversity and inclusivity survey. There's opportunities there about how we engage with people and introduce people, retain people within the community. So there's another opportunity for you to feedback through things there. There's another question around fundraising and looking at fundraising sources and whether this potentially could have conflicts of interest with the organisation. Judith or Carla want to take that one?
I mean, Carla might want to add, but I think, you know, we already have a position in terms of our policy on who, you know, how conflicts of interest and making sure that we really guard our integrity. And so that's not going to change. I think, you know, and when we appoint a director of development, you know, they will want to find out more about that and perhaps ask questions about, are there ways that we could engage with for example, the corporate world without compromising our integrity. But certainly from my perspective, you know, integrity is one of our core principles. So that has to be absolutely paramount. But we also have to challenge ourselves and say, well, actually, are there ways we could partner with some types of organisations that doesn't compromise that core principle?
And just briefly add that I think part of what the fundraising strategy has been clear is that, number one, this is a community approach. So we want to be transparent, we want to communicate with you, and you are going to be the judge of what we are doing as well. So our policies are quite strict, as you know. Sometimes this is a challenge for many of us, but I think it's very important for us to maintain our independence. So we'll be working with you on that, and more to come within the next 6 months.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you to everybody who are also not just putting questions in the chat, but also solutions to things. So thank you to everybody who have done that, and that's in true Cochrane collaborative style. Karen, there's a question for you about the finances, and it's about the financial report for 2020, the transition to open access. So it talks about half of our income, £5 million, is not labelled as royalties, but other publications income. I think that's the signing bonus, but yes. you can clarify.
Yes, I actually asked Casey just to respond to Eric through the chat, which she's done. So that was actually substantially the one-off payment associated with the new publishing contract. So it is a one-off. It wouldn't appear in future years. But actually that is what has allowed us to be able to set up these ring-fenced reserves for future investment. So I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Thank you. And we don't seem to have, there's another question about translation, which is a question for Carla, I think, is when will we be able to accept drafts of reviews in languages other than English?
Se eu pudesse, eu respondia em português. If I could, I would answer in Portuguese, just to make my point clear. I think, you know, in my view, the next 2-3 years for the strategy for change, part of what we're trying to do is to simplify the review production so that innovations can come after that. I can't tell you exactly now, but I think that those are things that we'll have to make a business case for it. And when I mean business case is that if this is what exactly the direction of travel. But the first thing for us and the most challenging in 2022 is how we actually simplify and become more efficient on the way we produce our reviews to be able to open for new initiatives in the future.
Thank you. And Carla, you've got another question, and I think this will be the last question, is how will Cochrane deal with the financial problems and potential loss of UK Cochrane groups? And can Cochrane ensure that review authors can still do reviews with fields of review groups shutting down? And I guess that's a long question, but I guess it's the topic for the visit futureofcochrane.org space.
Exactly. So thank you very much for this question. I just wanted to say that the loss of income is not only in the UK, and I think this is important because there is a huge amount of groups that will be losing their income in a year and a half, and we're working with the groups, and there are some initiatives to support this transition. Part of that in partnership with the UK Centre, led by Martin Burton. And a key thing for us, we have a process, a central editorial service, and we'll find ways that authors can submit their reviews directly to the central editorial service. So we want to remain relevant, and we want to remain publishing priority reviews. So this has been discussed widely in the workshops, and we'll continue to discuss, and some proposals will be part of the report we're putting together as part of the engagement.
Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the questions. No one has raised their hand, so we will move on. And all that's left to say is the date and time of the next annual general meeting, and that will be held in 2022. Once we have a date confirmed, that will be advertised. It's probably going to be as we are today, as a hybrid online and in-person meeting. That has to meet the requirements of the UK Charity Commission. You've got 30 more minutes to vote on any resolutions. For those people that haven't yet voted, you just need to go to the agm@cochrane.org. And just to say thank you to all of our speakers this morning for their excellent presentations, very informative. The recordings will be available shortly once the meeting's finished. And thank you to everybody who's participated online today. Most over 200 people have attended. Thank you so much for that, and for your questions and for your continued contributions to Cochrane. The future is bright, and we look forward to sharing the future with all of you. Thank you so much, and that concludes the annual general meeting.